I look forward to partnering with him and the teachers to make his goals successful.
Megan?
Well, I like his rhetoric. I like what he's had to say so far. I like that he seems to have been able to share that message a little bit, and we've seen some really, good articles in the press lately about the schools. And I was involved with the English curriculum, the reading curriculum as it was promulgated last year. It was actually something that Andrew Koppel has put forward, and we have to be mindful that some of our best schools in NPS, the Montessori schools, the art schools, and that they need to be able to also opt out of those programs as much as they do work for some, or else we really threaten those programs and their individuality and their attractiveness to parents that are truly seeking those methodologies. But I'm very enthused by the idea that he puts forward of the standard of care. I think that looking at the whole student and that we focus on their health needs, that we focus on what sort of extra responsibilities they take on at home is something that I've been talking about as well. I'm really glad that he shares that point of view.
Candy, Jim?
I have great respect for him. However, I have a little bit of a different outtake. I have spent a lot of the school year going back and forth with him in regards to getting the STEM program established in our school. I thought it would be very easy considering that we had a teacher who was trained in the program, we have the curriculum, we have a school that definitely wants the program, the teachers are all on board, we found a community backer, and he seems to be struggling with the goal. And I am very disappointed to a point, but at another, it makes me want to work a little bit harder to see what is making him tick and how he perceives how these programs are going to be established throughout our system.
Why don't we stay on Thornton for the next round? All we're kind of touching on that. One thing that you agree with him on, one thing that you disagree with him on. And we start with Megan.
Well, I got to mention briefly the idea of the standard of care, which is something that he's been talking about. And although it's sort of a medicalized model, that one of the areas that MPS I think really could do better is in reaching outside of its bounds to community partners to do things like expand the number of children that are applying for Badger Care. When I was working at Hunger Task Force, we had to fight really, really hard to get the schools to be willing to provide breakfast in the classroom. And it was, despite the fact that the schools were really interested in the program, it was the administration that was pushing back of the program. So I like the idea that he might be more open to these expansions and be a little bit more mindful of the whole child. That's something that's really important to me. And I think like everybody else, that there's a lot of concern that he's here for the very short term to make some difficult calls, and then that he'll move on. And I think we would all benefit from the superintendent to be here for them.
Okay. I feel that, I know that the idea more originated with Andrew Koppel, but I am very glad that he's continuing to get the curriculum to all be the same across the board. I think he's starting to look at MPS more of a system and not as little individual schools and little individual districts. And I think as soon as the city as a whole starts to see that we are one system and he tries to be more, tries to distribute things more equally throughout the system, that's going to bring our system stronger. And the thing that I don't exactly agree with him with is how he is being a little stand-backish from the principals. He doesn't want to come right out and tell them exactly what he wants to do.
Like Candy Joe, I agree that reading across the system was a very good idea. But Megan's point about certain individualized schools needing to be able to stay individualized is worthwhile too. So basically I agree with his point of view with initializing the reading and the English course. One of the things I found most objectionable was his decision to try to privatize the food service workers in MPS. I'm 100% against privatizing public employees. There's lots of reasons. I don't think I'm going to have time to go into all of them. But as a school system, we need to set a good example as civic citizens as well as educators. Education happens outside the classroom. If we don't treat our employees with respect, particularly employees that we've negotiated contracts with, we're putting the respect of our students and our citizens. And we also have a responsibility to pay a living wage and take care of people that we negotiate a contract with.
You mentioned the literacy plan, if I understood correctly. Why don't we go to that? This is starting with Candy Jo. What's your perspective on the reading program, the literacy plan? Is it getting better? Since you're standardizing things across the system, are you losing anything by doing that? So if you could just talk about your perspective.
Well, I think that we don't lose anything by standardizing the program, that we are making it easier for people who do move within our city to go from school to school and be able to pick up where they have left off. I have sat in the classes at school. The teachers seem to really enjoy the program. It is more time consuming to them. They have to spend so much time in a group with the kid, and they divide into smaller groups and work individually with the smaller groups. They have an opportunity to work with a child who might be a lower end, but then also to challenge the children at the higher end of that spectrum, which brings that all into play and keeping that the teachers are more individualizing the children's programs, and they're able to do that under that whole new system.
I haven't had the hands-on experience that Candy has. I congratulate you for having the time and making the effort to do that. I do think it will help transition for transient students to go from one place to the other. It will also make it more of an apples to apples when we're looking at achievement across one school system to another, or across the one school to another. That's always been a tricky thing. Assessing a student achievement when they aren't being taught the same, learning the same things can always be difficult. Standardized testing doesn't always prove what a student's actually learned. I hope if we are getting some individual attention for the students, that should be a big factor. I would hope that if it's that intense, that we can get some more volunteers in the schools to give the teachers a hand with that kind of stuff.
I think that I come from the perspective similar to Ed and to Candy, that whatever might be lost, particularly this year in the first year of implementation, to creativity, that we gain back for our neediest students. And truly, when you think about the kids that are changing schools 4 to 5 times a year, if they have the sense of accomplishment of being able to indicate to a teacher quickly which book they were reading, where they are with the curriculum, the teacher is able to differentiate to them quicker. That is, for a needy child, I imagine that is really a good experience, and I support that. I do think that a lot of things that some teachers have expressed frustration with comes with it being the first year. It's a lot easier to innovate in the curriculum after you've been through it one time. I know we're all in our first campaigns, and I can imagine that we all depends on how we would do differently next time. So I'd like to, like everything else, we could stand to give it a couple more years and see how it's going.
I want to segue over to questions. This is new at the Bayview High School. I'll ask one, we'll see if it warrants some discussion. But there's been discussion, and my attention also the question of Mel. On one hand, the competitive, on the other hand, they graduate from Bayview, and how parents in the district perceive Bayview High School. And Bayview, and you guys will be representing, one of you will be, that's what it is. Look on some of the composite score for Bayview this past year, 2009-2010, was 1.9. Down from 16.7 the previous year. A different testing environment that sort of a jump, but nonetheless, if you look at the board below, the UW Milwaukee is looking for so we're looking for 17 or 21, depending on where you are in your class. And so when they've got in high school or whatever, they're looking, well, where do I send my high school? They see that, and they're looking for stats, ways to quantify how good is that. They get very discouraged because they feel like, well, this is not churning out the kind of educational experience a child will. Part of the question that was sent to me here is that Alan Borsig was noting that the other Southside Milwaukee students are using Borsig for others. They're not going to Bayview. So I get the sense of everyone's question, a couple, is and then is Bayview High School viable competition? I'll open this up to be 2 minutes per because I've been yapping here. So we start with Adam.
Okay, I wasn't the first one.
Sorry about that.
Bayview High School has to be a major focus for a member from the 8th District and the board in general. It at one time was one of the crown jewel high schools in the MPS system, and there's no reason why it can't be again today. I know the teachers there are hardworking, concerned professionals that want to make sure that their students have a good education. I think we need to help them wherever we can. So if we can focus some of our resources, I'm not just talking about money, I'm just talking about some other more qualified people who can mentor those teachers. If we can help them with situations, I know there's some other questions about the way some of that functions, that we should put whatever resources we can in to help that school. There's no reason that within a few years of concerted effort that we can't have Bayview be, again, one of the crown jewels in our MPS system. And as a board member, because of Bayview, I think all the schools in this district need to have a board member present frequently. He or she needs to be a face that the teachers know. He or she needs to be a face that the students know somewhat, but definitely the parents know. If the board member is involved that way, the parents will be involved that way, the teachers will get excited, all that will trickle down and the students will have a better educational experience. We can improve that school.
Okay, thanks, Ed. Megan?
This is one of those tough questions. I'm glad you gave us a little more time. But there are a number of programs at Bayview High School that really stand out, and that draw kids from all over the city. And whether it's the sciences and their robotics, or the fact that they're one of the few high schools that still has an orchestra. There are a number of things to be proud of in Bayview High School. And, I think that like the CLP, the transition with Fritchie is very new, and I think those administrations are still sort of figuring out how to work together. And I think that I actually agree with them quite a bit, that there's a lot of good in that building, but like any large high school, there are problems. And one of the things that I would be very interested in doing is talking to the students, because a lot of times students have a very, very keen sense of what's going on in their building, what's working for them and what isn't. And when we increase student satisfaction, we make them more likely to graduate. When they're more likely to graduate, when they're more likely to attend school in the first place, we may see those ACT scores go up. So that's where I tend to start, is with the students, with the kids. But it's my oldest student is a K-5. He's just about to turn 6 years old, but it's my aspiration to send him to Bayview High School. And I know that many, many people in our community feel the same way, and that we're really committed to working with the fantastic teachers that are there now, the principal that's there now, to say, how do we take what's good here and grow it?
Andy Jo?
I think that point, how do we take what's good and grow it, is what MPS needs to figure out. We have great high schools in our system, and we need to find out what's working at those high schools and use that as a plan and spread that throughout all the high schools. When you look at the other alternatives in our district here with Ronald Reagan, there are problems at Ronald Reagan also. They have disciplinary problems, but you need to realize that Ronald Reagan is a much smaller school. So when you're comparing apples to apples, let's compare apples to apples. You can't compare a school that has almost 200 students less to a school. Ronald Reagan has just over 200. I believe Bayview has right around 400 students, as far as I'm aware of. So we need to keep that an aspect. There seems to be a tug of war going on right now at Bayview with Fritchie joining them and the Fritchie staff versus the Bayview staff. And I know that there was a timeline established that they have 1 year to figure out how to work together. And it seems like the Bayview staff really wants to make this work, and the Fritchie staff is kinda, standing their ground and not really wanting to mesh together. I think the two staffs need to establish a common ground and start there and start to work with each other, be it, same governance councils, same something. And when parents are looking to get into high schools, they can't just get online and look at stats. We need to visit our schools. You need to go into the building, sit in a class, and see what happens at the school.
Okay, thanks, Candy.